how I redesigned Zarya's particle cannon from Overwatch. First, for the projectile, start with a kick for the initial impact and add a sub for some weight. Make sure they're both mono and spaced apart a bit to keep the low end clean. Create a high-end mech layer for the trigger pull, and for the barrel closing again. Add this weird tail sound I made a while ago to give it some momentum and resonance. But not too much resonance. Subtly blend in the sound of an airport hangar door closing to make it sound more metallic and big. Now take this little clicky thing I made using Serum and Ableton's vocoder and heavily process it with OTT, trash, transient master, trash again and air to give it some nice clear highs. Reduce that width to make it seem like it's in front of the player. Now we have a semi-usable sci-fi laser sound for the transient of the projectile. Put that same sound through Ableton's vocoder, pitch it down, and record yourself messing around with the controls to make a bubbly energy layer for the low mids. Layer 2 of them to make the main body of the sound. Altogether, the wet stuff sounds like this. Subtly mix in a tail from a shotgun and apply some compression, multiband compression, accentuating the highs and taming the lows, EQ, and more air to make it sound powerful and punchy. Don't forget to make sure the lows are in mono as well. This is the final sound. I made the second variation by making alternate sounds with the same processing techniques and very similar source material, as well as some subtle pitch shifting for some layers. Now onto the laser. Take some alternate versions of the body sound from the projectile and use them, along with another kick, for the initial transient. This is exactly the same effects chain from this, but I used another starting sound and pitched it way down. Now for the sustained laser. I used 3 serum patches and a drone I had already pre-made to characterize different parts of the frequency spectrum independently. Here's my high layer. I made this by taking the original body sound and using it as a wavetable in Serum, playing it 3 octaves down to get a growly top end and EQing out all the lows and mids, along with some FM from a sine wave 4 octaves up and some super fast delay to give it some more tonality. Slight auto pan to give it as much movement as possible and tuck it under the main layer, which sounds like this. It's just another serum patch with a saw and a triangle wave, both with unison, and a little bit of AC hum to make it slightly messy and dirty. Pair that with a gradually moving low pass filter and some distortion and ring mod for this. In terms of effects, I have a lot of compression, trash with an LFO modulating the mix level, use the jitter function to make the movement sound less regular and more unstable, bring the width down again and tidy up any particularly resonant frequencies, bring another jittery LFO on the low end to make it less constant, as I think having constant low end rumble would get pretty fatiguing in game. This riser layer is another serum patch with 2 detuned saws, one frequency modulating the other, with a bit of distortion and compression. I'm automating the pitch up as the gun runs out of ammo, and also the volume, so it serves as kind of a warning to the player that they soon need to reload. Lastly, this drone, made from a detuned saw with lots of reverb, gives the sound more tonality, and actually plays 4 semitones up from the note that all the serum patches are playing, giving it a nice tense feeling. It's also being modulated by this LFO to prevent it getting too grating or annoying, as it is pretty resonant. I use the sound of this bike wheel pitched down for a mech layer, another trigger pull, and took some more processed energy sounds to give it a sound when it stops firing. I have an effects rack on the sustained laser that includes supercharger for more compression, a utility to reduce the width and keep the bass in mono, an EQ to reduce some resonances, multiband dynamics again to accentuate the highs and tame the low end, more air, NC17 which is kind of compression and distortion, a compressor sidechaining the sustained laser to the initial transient I made, and another multiband dynamics, sidechain to the bike chain to make sure that it cuts through the mids. Here it is without the effects. And here it is with the effects. Lastly, the reload. Coffee grinder for the main body layer, along with more bike wheels for added movement as the gun comes open, and some slight panning to separate all those samey sounds in the mix. One last bubbly layer taken from the projectile shot to make it sound like the same gun. and I repurposed the high-end serum patch with a more drastic pitch automation, more distortion, a lot more high-end, and some modulation of the volume to create a little riser for the gun as it recharges. This frequency shifter gives it some more variation from the original as well. Lastly, use some mountain ambience and sidechain all your main events to it so it doesn't get in the way of anything. And subtly bring in some reverb and delay, which I think fits the space it's being fired in. Altogether, your redesign should sound like this.